It's just Jersey, man. We're a different breed. Place. Who doesn't want to win in Jersey?
What's up, everybody? John Forster here, breakdown from the barn. We're on episode 34. With me, as always, the greatest mind in wrestling, Eric McNuff. We got a big guest in. We got MVP, Mikey Merckle, VanBrill, joining us today, coming off his season last year at Rutgers, put in 6 great years with the Knights. How you doing, Mikey?
Doing really well, man. How you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing great, man. We're doing great. So
excited to be on the podcast.
Yeah, it's good times, good time. So what's keeping you busy these days?
Oh man. After kind of wrestling ended and stuff like that, I got a master's in human resources from Rutgers, and was planning and thinking that I was going to be done school, but found my way back into real estate school, and was doing some classes for that. Ended up getting licensed and working down south here, right in my hometown in Mullica Hill. So, and I also have a family business, pool business. So working in pools, doing the construction and selling side, as well as, selling homes as well. So staying busy and just learning.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, the real estate, I know, that's hard work, like wrestling's hard work, and cool you're diving in there, and VanBrill pools, that goes way back. We always hear about them, so that's good stuff.
Yeah, it was about, I think VanBrill is around 51 years now. So it's definitely a good family business to be a part of. Looking forward to just continuing that path and continuing that family tradition, and really treat the customers right, give them what they want. So VanBrill's has definitely been around my life for a while. So
nice. And it's the commercial. If you ever check out the 1996 Region 8 finals, man, right before my match, VanBrill pool commercial comes on. So it's
no way. Are you serious?
It's a good thing. Yeah, I'll pull it up for you afterwards.
Region 8, huh?
Region 8, Region 8, baby. So, so let's talk about, wrestling at Rutgers. How was that experience? You put in a lot of time on those mats, and how was it, wrestling at the rack, and the fans and the teammates and everything else?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind, I'll kind of start from the beginning of how that happened. It all started kind of, it was around, man, I started taking wrestling pretty seriously early on in my high school career. I wasn't having all the success I wanted, freshman, sophomore year. And then, I actually got sent to J-Rob boot camp, which is, about a 30-day boot camp down in Minnesota. So, my dad was like, you're not making the cut right now. You need to go ahead and do something. So we went through some really grueling workouts, some really grueling workouts. I think, 6-7 days a week. 4 or 5 workouts a day, midnight runs, all that kind of crazy stuff. So that really set the tone for me to come into my senior year. When I got back, I ended up getting the I Did It shirt. My dad bribed me with a little bit of cash to get it. So that made the journey all worthwhile. But, ended up kind of, getting into my senior year, and, was pretty much 32-0 until I made it to the States finals, wrestled Shane Griffith. You guys know Shane Griffith. In the finals, and had a pretty close match. I think I ended up like 3-2, and I was pretty like devastated that I I was happy that I made the finals, but also devastated that I lost. And that kind of like lit a fire in me to like go ahead and pursue Rutgers. My brother was there. He was already there my sophomore year in high school. So, almost junior year, I kind of knew where I wanted to go. So that really propelled me into, pushing and training and lifting all the way until, my freshman year. My freshman year, I redshirted. So that was a really good year. I ended up just kind of really, winning some good matches, losing here and there, but had some really good success out in those redshirt tournaments. And then the next year followed 141, where I wrestled. Anthony was usually there, but, filled in the 141 spot. And it was a, really great time where I was just learning and, had some really tight matches at the rack. I mean, I remember Penn State, we were packed to the brim, and I was like a redshirt freshman, and I was wrestling Nick Lee. And, I was always like kind of ready to win those type of matches, and I think it ended up being like, I think the score was like 3-1 or 3-2 or something. But, that really kind of set the tone for my whole career, kind of being in those tight matches against those top rank athletes and stuff like that. I mean, Rutgers was amazing because I had some really great training partners, Anthony Ashnault, and then the people that came into the RTC, I was getting to train. I actually started out in College Ave, so a lot of the people that I ended up with later in my career, they never got to see College Ave. They really started in the APC, the finer stuff. But it was really great to start from the ground, literally, and then work the way up.
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned your pop because he's was a mainstay. I think of some of the fathers. I remember Parati's dad, but he was always a good guy to have out in the stands. He got you guys jazzed up. It's funny because I remember one of your first matches was, I don't know if Mike you remember being out. I think you wrestled when they were out on the field. The first I think there was like 16 or 17,000 before the football game. So, and I think you took a tight loss in that match. I remember looking at your pops. You probably wouldn't remember this. I said, and he was a little upset. I said, don't worry. He's going to come back from this. And one day you're going to forget all about this. And he's going to accomplish cool things. And you did because you had that big run when you took third in the Big Tens. I want to touch on that because you obviously talked about the beginning of your career, getting involved when your brother came in, some of those early matches. So talk to me about that big run in the Big Tens where you kind of took third. You knocked off Max Muir, and I know John and I were texting back and forth on a hell of a tournament you had. I think you had Griffin from Purdue. He was a tough wrestler. So why don't you just walk us through that tournament and kind of what was in your mind?
Kind of getting chills talking about it. That was kind of a crazy day. I mean, that year was, COVID was happening, and there was a lot of just moving parts. And we were just kind of wrestling. We started actually, you know, that whole year I wasn't actually even enrolled in school. So um the year prior, I actually qualified for the national tournament for the first time in my career. It was at 157 pounds. I went from 141 pounds to 157 pounds because I just decided, I'm not going to cut weight anymore. And that was a big part. Cutting weight was a big part of my college career. But coming back to the Big Ten run, I mean, it started in the beginning of the year. I actually wasn't even enrolled in school from September, October, November, and then January came around. I was actually from September, October, all the way through the summer to September, October, November. I was actually just traveling the country. I was, like I said, I was cliff jumping. I was visiting my family out in Oregon. I was just trying to like break free from all the kind of just, there's a lot that goes in with wrestling in school and stuff, and the workouts and just the grind. So I think I was trying to separate a little bit from that. So I was just, having fun, traveling the country.
Clear
And
your head.
yeah, I cleared my head a little bit. And I remember January, I think it was one of the first days of January, the season had just started. And Goody, you know, he was just like, you want to come in? Do you want to come back and wrestle? And I said, yeah, like that's where I want to be. I kind of got a chance to clear my head and make a decision on whether I was coming back or not. So, I actually came in the first day. He's like, okay, come in on Friday. It's match day. And I knew that. So I wasn't even training at all. I mean, I was really cliff jumping and traveling, hiking, all that stuff. And so he asks me, Mike, come in Friday. We got matches. And I knew exactly what that entailed. He wasn't wasting any time. So I ended up, having that wrestle off the first day that I was back, with my, opponent Gerard. He's a great guy. We're close friends, and, we've been practice partners all throughout our career. So, hats off to you, Gerard. But we were able to go ahead and, wrestle off, and I got the spot. And we started off at Michigan for the first match, and it was me versus Keenan Storr. It was a tight
I was
match.
gonna say Storr, yep.
Yeah, and I ended up dropping that one, but the next match was against Michael Blockus, and I actually have a long history with Blockus. We've wrestled probably 5 times, and I ended up taking that match. It was a big turning point for me because, it's you're 0-1, you got opponents behind you that are pushing you in practice and waiting for that time. And, it was he was ranked like 17th or something at the time. So pulled out a really good win, and I was excited about it. So that kind of, propelled me into the season. It was a very short season. And, I think I was coming in seated around like 12th in the Big Ten tournament. And my first match was against Peyton Omania.
Yep.
who
You had a
was
couple of scraps with him too, I recall.
Yep, couple scraps with him. It's always kind of tough wrestling guys that you've wrestled before, especially if you've. I don't know. It's just something that as a competitor, just going back and knowing their style and stuff. I knew his style. He was a big
Upper body, Greco type guy. Yep.
exactly. So I came in the match pretty strong, shooting, took him down, and I ended up getting headlocked for like a whole period. He was like, I almost passed out. It was so tight. The dude has a nice headlock, I'll tell you that. But I ended up fighting off my back, trying to fight my way back. I think I lost by like 2 or 3 points. And that in that time in my career, I had already came back um kind of on my own a little bit. And I didn't know if they were gonna, offer me to come back. So this was a point in my time where I was already done my bachelor's degree. So I would have had to come back and, do something else. So it was kind of a tipping point. So I was 0-1 at the Big Ten, and I knew if I were to lose that next match, that's probably the end of my career. So, I actually ended up, getting right off the mat and started warming up again. And I remember, about 45 minutes later, I thought that my name was going to be coming up for the next round. And turns out they were waiting later that night to wrestle that round. So I was warming up for about an hour, trying to get ready for this big match in the blood rounds.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who I was going to get. It was either Ridge Lovett or Max Murin. So, um, you know, I came out, I was warming up, and Coach Pollard's like, "What are you doing right now?" I'm like, "What?" He's like, "You're not up until tonight." So I'm all pissed off. I like just was so upset because I did all that warming up. I had lost. It just wasn't a good place. So ended up making my way back to the hotel and just had some time to take a shower, take a nap, and kind of recoup on my thoughts. And I ended up turning all those negative thoughts into something like that I was like thankful for. Like, dang, like, my wrestling career could be over. This could be my last match. I might as well enjoy it just because this is pretty cool. I'm in the Big
All out,
Ten.
man.
Yeah. So I came into that kind of flow state where I remember just looking at Murin on the side when we finally got back to the building, had a good warm up. And there was some sort of change in my mind where I was like looking at Murin. I'm just like, he's like getting all psyched up, warming up, smacking his head, getting all psyched. And I remember just standing there totally just like in like this Zen state with my hands crossed, just looking at him. And just like something in my mind was telling me like he's super nervous right now. Like he has everything on the line. So kind of changed that mindset.
Yep.
So hopped on and just started wrestling through the match. And it wasn't really going my way too much. I got taken down. He was riding me out. And then I ended up doing a big back hook to get out for the one. And then I would think it was like 3-1 or something like that. 2-1, or it was like, the next takedown wins by the third period. And I ended up getting a takedown and like 4 back points to end up closing the match. So, I mean, after that win, it was just like all pressure's off. I remember winning and yeah, I just remember winning, and I looked at Goody and he was like, "You're not done." He goes, "You're not done." And the funny part was Goody actually, in the practice prior before we left for Big Tens, he was like, "You know who I want?" I'm like, "Who do you want, Goody? Who do you want this tournament?" He goes, "I want Brands. I want Brands." I'm like, "All right, yeah, like I'm down," because I always was ready to wrestle the best, and put my foot on the line no matter what. So ended up winning that one. And then, I think I won like 4 consecutive straight, like on the top seeded guys. It just,
not just 4 consecutive straight, but I think you knocked it 2, 3, 5, 6. Like I said, I know you knocked off Perriott from Purdue. And what's impressive about that, Mike, is a lot of guys, when they take third or they wrestle in the back end, sometimes you'll get kind of that lower seed in the back end. You'll get maybe, kind of a couple of matches, maybe you get a big upset and then you coast. The fact that you had to go through such a grind in the back end of that bracket, I think made it even more impressive, because there's a lot of guys who, like I said, wrestle back, take third. Maybe there's an upset and a top seed falls in, but you literally had a couple of guys who had got knocked out in the top of that bracket. So for me, taking third that year, the way you did it, I think was even more impressive. And that puts you in a category of guys like Sebastian Rivera, Ashnalt Soriano, guys who were top place winners in the Big Ten tournament. In a lot of cases, Mikey, that Big Ten tournament is almost like the Nationals. So for me to be able to do that to me was one of the most impressive runs I've seen kind of in from a Rutgers wrestler. So it's a great tournament.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And And keeping it, you mentioned earlier, I was going to go backwards, but let's go back. You're talking about your brother, Johnny Van Brill. And it's funny because you guys kind of had different styles. Johnny was a very funky wrestler, really exciting guy to watch. But I heard you guys had some good scraps in the room. So talk to me about wrestling with your brother, because I think that's a cool experience to be able to do that. And number two, what was it like for you guys? Did you guys ever roll on the mat in the practice room, and how'd that go?
Me and my brother actually were pretty much rolling since we were in since we were actually kids. My dad put a mat down and he would just make us go at each other and just wrestle. But in the college room, I mean, my brother was always a weight class or two above me, but we got after it. It was fun to be able to have that competitive side. We lived with each other for pretty much all of our lives, from growing up here to going to college and living in the same apartment and stuff. It was good to be on the same team as him. We actually had a just like a really competitive nature to each other. And finding that kind of team within that through Rutgers was good because we both wrestled on the same roster, starting. And that was an amazing experience to have a brother in the Big Ten, Division I, wrestling on the same roster. It doesn't happen all the time, so I'm definitely thankful to be able to see his progress,
Right.
and then be able to kind of continue off that.
Yeah. And talking about your style, because obviously, like I said, Johnny was a very funky kind of guy, really fun, big throws. You obviously, John mentioned it, Mighty Merckle. Talk us through that, because you had one of the nastiest Merckles I've ever seen. It's funny because after you walked out, I started seeing some kids at the lower levels, kind of at the youth level, start running that. And that was something I hadn't seen for a while, but I swear it had something to do with you running it. But it was nasty. So talk us through how you developed it and how it kind of became your go-to move.
So actually starting like elementary school, it was either the quarter Nelson for me or the
The
Merkle.
core, yep.
And that was actually way back when I was a young kid. I remember I actually wasn't that good of a wrestler. As element, I mean, I was good, but I actually didn't really care too much about wrestling. I would kind of get a little upset when my dad was making me travel and go to all these tournaments and stuff. And I just kind of wanted to be with my friends. So I would actually kind of just be a little bit lazy, maybe. I don't know if lazy is the right word, but I had a little bit of trouble going for the basic technique, really. I mean, um, it was about sometimes I'd be down like 8-0 or something, and then all of a sudden I would just pull out a quarter and just pin the guy. And like that was kind of my signature growing up all out through elementary and high school. There wasn't really anything orthodox about my style. It was really about Merkles, quarters. I mean, I had some good takedowns, and some good basics by the time I was later in high school. But that was really carried over into college as well. I remember being in the room. The Rutgers coaches were great about that because they respected my ability to throw, do inside trips, do Merkles, do
Yep.
all that type of big moves, and they really allowed me to kind of maybe for a little while put that aside in the practice room and start working on my basics more and more, baseline defense, getting out of bottom correctly, keeping your elbows in, hands in, don't be reaching for wrists and getting cross wrists. So those are all basics that I ended up really perfecting. But I never let that stuff go. I never let my style and those moves kind of scare me away from hitting them. They may be a little bit more risky, but there's certain ways to hit them that I fell in love with hitting them. I fell in love with the fact that you could hit one move and you're up 6-0, or you could just pin someone right away. I mean, I think it was my at 157 for sixth place at was it fifth place or sixth? At
Yeah.
157.
Yeah.
Um, ended up, in the last match to make it to nationals, qualify for nationals. I was just a quarter Nelson pin. So those moves work at the highest level, and being able to develop them the right way. Something stupid. It's just like instead of grabbing a Merkle with like your hands like this or like this, I would come around the neck and I'd grab all the way up at my shoulder pit.
I like the
It would just
triangle.
create like a really restriction on their neck, and just the way my positions are in the inside leg and stuff like that. So just developed it long into my college career. Ended up getting that weird inside leg ride, um, and just riding with it. It's weird. It wasn't really too much of a pinning combination, but I found out that getting riding time and breaking people down on top was working. So I rode with it.
Yeah, definitely key. And those big moves work for you. We know you got a big NIL deal with Stu Cohn, Miller's Rental. What did that mean to you? Me and Winnuck, we got the original NIL deal with Miller's. We used to have to go out there and bang the
We had to work for it.
But
You guys used to work.
yeah, we got it
Boost
done.
numbers, man.
That like
Boost
getting the
numbers.
picture on the tank, getting the NIL deal. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I remember. Actually, I got to give a little credit here. But I was doing a lot of video work for Mob and Media. Really, as they were upcoming, just doing all their events, videoing the tournaments, videoing the practices, videoing Astronaut for his Olympic trials and stuff like that. And Eleazar and his um, uh, Bergen area Dragons. But I think it really came from being really active on social media with my posts and stuff. I don't know how I think like literally in the beginning of last year, Instagram and the reels really just popped off. I mean, just being able to get exposure like 10, 20,000, 100,000, 200,000 views on one video is capable now on the Instagram. So I was just focusing on building that earlier in the year. And I remember Eleazar came up to me. He was a former Rutgers wrestler, and he just said that Miller's Rentals was looking to sponsor one of the athletes, and they were looking at all the athletes, and they thought that the social media aspect of me kind of stood out, and obviously being able to wrestle at a high level was good as well. But yeah, I think that's where it came from, was just being active on social media, and them wanting to be able to maybe benefit off of posting about them. And they're a great company. I love Stu. Appreciate everything that he's done for me as well. I mean, that allowed me to kind of relax a little bit. I remember I was using some of the money to go to the Russian banya, the Bear and Birch. So I was going to the saunas, spending all that money. Thank you, Stu. But I was just making sure, my body was right, my nutrition was right, and it allowed me to kind of like put away work for a while. Like I didn't have to, be editing videos as much and making sure that I was stable enough, making sure I had enough rent to come in and all that good stuff. But he definitely helped me out a lot that year.
Well, Stu's always been a big supporter of the wrestling program in general, and John was touching on it. I'm going back to the day of me and Chris Tanzola, Waisaki, John. Those guys would come afterwards. So he's always way back in the '90s. We had 3 or 4 wrestlers out there swinging sledgehammers, throwing up tents. And John, talk about what we're doing with Stu, because we're gonna have that big tailgate coming up in against Michigan State. That Stu's going to be giving us the tent.
Yeah. I mean, Stu Cohn is Rutgers through and through from the old days back in college gym, and yeah, we'll have the tent out right in front of the rack, so it'll be just like the basketball team did it. They had that tent packed, so we want to do that as well. And like you said, Mike, we want to get the money and then bring it to get some more NIL deals for the wrestlers. I think it's something that is. You got to adapt, like you said, the Instagram, you got to figure that stuff out. And I think looking to be successful in the next couple of years, you got to get these guys these NIL deals to propel the program. And I think where Rutgers is, I see it as something where this could take them to the next level, just with all the businesses around New Jersey, right? I think if it's seen as a value, and I think what you said was pretty cool, because that's our thought. It has to be seen as a value to people too, right? Hey, I get this, I give this person money and then my company gets a bunch of exposure. So, we're looking to do that. Hopefully we get a couple more deals out there. We got Andy Clark a deal.
With all that. Congrats.
So that's pretty cool. And come out, guys. Make sure you get your tickets, breakdownfromthebarn.com, and we'll have food there. We got a couple sponsors. Cross Somerset's going to bring some food. Cherry's Bakery is going to bring some food. So Stu's bringing the 10, obviously, and we got Thrive. Thrive's going to be there as well. So that's going to be pretty cool. Got a couple local sponsors. So get your tickets. It's going to be a good time.
While we're on the NIL stuff, obviously social media is a huge part. But really it's about putting in the work, being a great wrestler on the mat, and getting it that way as well. But any athletes that are looking to stand out on social media, any tips, any maybe even video editing packages, VanBrill Media, I'm having a bunch of helping athletes, helping businesses prepare those type of video packages. So if you're watching this, give me a shout. But
Hey, pretty cool. We'll get into the video stuff a little later. And we're going to talk about that because I do see what you're doing. You're doing some very cool stuff. We're amateurs here with the editing. I'm figuring that out as well. But we're the boomers.
We're quick on the draw. We adapt quickly. That's why we did the video out there on the West Coast. But the technical skills, we can use your chops. So going back to wrestling discussion. So it's cool we got Mikey on the line here because we can get his perspective. But obviously we just had the Midlands. And John, I know you and I kind of talked about it in terms of the performance of Rutgers over Midlands. And I thought we had a really good first round. I think put 4 guys into the semis. And the second round, I'll call it at best, was incomplete. In kind of a mixed bag, I would say. John, I don't know your thoughts, but for me, I would have liked to have seen a couple of guys kind of pop into the finals. We didn't see that. Obviously, Saldano ran into a couple of tough big guys. Obviously, at 184, he got a D3 national champ, and I think he knows he's going to have to work on some things. The book's out, so he's going to adapt. He's going to be fine. I thought Dean Peterson had a nice little run, but I got a little bit close with the UPenn wrestler this time around, still got the win, ran into a 2-time All-American. I thought he wrestled him tough, but he was a big, strong, tough, experienced kid. Obviously didn't wrestle for that third match, but I thought he had a good, solid round. I liked from what I saw from the heavyweight position. I thought he tough luck. You get obviously the Arizona State wrestler in the back end. That one kid made a hell of a run, that freshman. So to me, I don't know your thoughts, John, in terms of Midlands. I thought it was a bit incomplete. I think we've got some work to do. I would have liked to seen a better second round, but your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the team, fared below expectations when you looked at the brackets and you saw who was in there. I don't think it's anything totally alarming. Like you said, ran into some tough guys. It was still a tough tournament. I think a lot of the top guns weren't there, but it was still a tough tournament. Andy Clark got the big win over Artelona. I
That was
think
a positive, yep.
Capable of doing that, but then dropped 3, semi-slid to take 6th place, but got in the rankings, so that's a positive. But I think overall, slightly below what we would have liked to seen. Lost to some tough guys. Heilman lost to some tough guys, was the 2nd seed. Kolioko won it, who Heilman beat. So you just didn't see that pop and someone take it to the next level at Midlands, which I think we were all hoping for.
Yeah, and I think Tony White had a tough day, but I think it happens. He's been on such a run since last year. I mean, we talked about him early last year. He had a hell of a redshirt freshman season, came in, was pushing kind of on that top 20, top 10. So obviously he's going to go back to the drawing board and try to rebound from that. So, and obviously we had, he had the scuffle. We had Ryder at the scuffle. I thought Laird took a tough loss there. So and that's the difference, John. Now, we talked about Midlands back in the day. And Mike, I want to get your perspective in terms of wrestling at the Midland Southern Scuffle, in your feedback. I don't know if you had any observations from last weekend and kind of your experience wrestling those tournaments.
Yeah, so I'll touch on some of the guys. I mean, one is Sammy Alvarez in the beginning. I mean, the first match, it was 10-10 overtime takedown, finds his way back to 3rd. So congrats, Sammy. I've been in touch with him, and honestly, I think he's got his head on right. And if he keeps just wrestling the way he does, sometimes it's not as always pretty. Sometimes things happen, but he has that grit to come out on the other end. So keeping in touch. He's got his eyes on NCAA title. So just continue working and continue plugging away with that. But Saldano, I mean, God, the way he can just get off his back and make something of it is kind of crazy. Would you guys say?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it, John. It takes a special type of athlete. And obviously he's been doing that. And people, I read the message boards. He's got to get away from that. He's got to work on something different. He's been doing this forever. I mean, if anyone's followed this guy going back his freshman year, where people don't realize I don't even think he even placed in the States his freshman year, but he's always kept that style, won 3 in a row. This is who he is. I think he's got to tweak a few things. I liked some of his wrestle back where he was able to wrestle a little bit more conventional. I think we need to work on some things on his feet, but Saldano is who he is. And I think he's going to improve from this. I think he's going to pick up on it, but he's a special type of athlete. He's still I think we got a little bit too high on him, John, early on. I think people got a little excited. But I think this is, I guarantee this, if not this year, he's going to have multiple trips on the podium. He's going to make a run in a national championship. I really believe that. But yeah, he's a special athlete. He does things that just most kids can't do.
Yeah, but and I'm not surprised he took a couple losses. I kind of expected it, but I think when you see someone like that could lay on their back and then all of a sudden, just swing the tables like that at will and pin the person. I mean, it takes something special there. So I think he needs to figure it out. I think people are figuring him out now, but I think the challenge is people are going to figure him out, but he has that next level athleticism. So I think he's going to end up figuring it out more. And I think eventually in, 2 years, this guy's going to be a national title threat. He might get on the podium this year. You have that style, you can beat anybody, right? So I do think I'm still pretty bullish on him long term. I think we'll have to see what happens this year. Would have liked to see him get the title. He was the top seed and obviously took fourth in the weight, but yeah, I think all good things are to come from him.
Got to remember, I mean, he's just starting out. There's so much, man. When I was a freshman to when I was a senior was almost a completely different person. So there's a lot to, especially in the Rutgers room. You got Pollard, you got all those guys. I think there's gonna be good things from him. I know Anthony White had an off day, but listen, he's got some talent. Just wrestling with him all the time, I could definitely see, his length, his, skill. He's still a young cat too. So definitely I'm looking forward to watching him wrestle. Dean Peterson, another young cat that's, showing out. Obviously at the UPenn match, he may have beaten that guy a little bit better. But, that happens sometimes. Like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, wrestling guys once, twice, three times, it just gets a little bit, throws things off a little bit. And, it just happens sometimes.
The guys switch up on you. I mean, you were talking about Ashnell earlier. I mean, what he did, him and Klodzik had so many battles. In that senior year, he goes ahead and puts 10, 11 points on him, and they wrestle in the Nationals. He gets a ride out point and beats him 2-0. I mean, that happens, especially at a high level, especially when you're talking about ranked kids. You're absolutely right. Okay. Everyone's got the book on everyone. You adjust. The key is to win the match. Okay. So even if he chips in and gets a little bit closer, the fact that he came away with the win, I think is the positive. So yeah, I agree with you on that. And you talked about Sammy, and Sammy's another one. Sammy. People have a lot of opinions on Sam Alvarez's style. He's been wrestling that way since I remember watching him, when he won his state title, because, obviously close with Composto, watching that little run. So Sammy is who he is. The key is he's winning the matches. I think he's going to build off this. I think he's kept some of these matches a little closer than I would have liked. I think being at 41 is obviously a little bit of adjustment too. I mean, you talked about when you were at 41 going to 57. I think when you're trying to be at 33 and going up to 41, he's adjusting a little bit. So I think all these guys are going to learn from this, and I think they're going to shake out and I think they're going to be fine.
Yeah, definitely. So let's get into the video editing, Mike. Like, how did you learn that? I mean, you make some pretty cool stuff. Like, how'd you get into that and start learning that? Did you take classes at Rutgers, or is that something you did on your own?
Yeah, so actually, when I took third at the Big Ten that year, I had already been, my master's had been, or my bachelor's was complete. So I just wanted to take something so I could be able to compete, and I took up video editing. I actually got into video editing solely from traveling and cliff jumping, because I was traveling everywhere. I was doing all this cool stuff. I had a bunch of people around me that were doing crazier stuff than me. And I was just like, wow, I should really get a camera. So I got a camera, picked it up, and I just started taking photos, taking videos of all the guys doing crazy stuff. And then I started to get a little bit more into cliff jumping. So I started videoing my stuff. And so I had a camera, I had a rig, I had all the kind of gadgets and stuff. And, that summer, I actually had some crazy opportunities with video that I just kind of walked into. I had a video editing job with Mike Kraus, who was, he travels all around the country doing big events and tournaments and practices and clinics and stuff. And he was at one of this journeyman wrestling, and it was for John Smith. So next thing you know, in front of Frank Popolizio and John Smith, and now they all want videos. So now I'm doing videos for Mike Kraus, and now I have all this footage on John Smith, and it just went from one thing to the next. I started doing interviews and some clinics for AJ Ferrari. So it actually turned into a business, because I was up at college training for my last year, and I needed some income. So, that was doing it for me. And I carried those techniques over. I started out on iMovie and purchased Adobe Premiere Pro, which is kind of the whole video creative package, which has like, Premiere Pro, Photoshop, Lightroom, all different types of stuff. So that's kind of how I ended up getting really into it. It took, hours and hours and hours and hours of editing and practicing and stuff like that. So it's almost like a little bit of a side hustle for me now. But really was the all the traveling and jumping and stuff got me into it, and making little edits because I was like, wow, this stuff could actually maybe do good on YouTube or something. So that's how it kind of started.
Full stop.
I gotta ask you a question.
Highest cliff jump, Eric.
Yeah, I was gonna jump into that. I talked when we had Humphreys on, we talked about this. So I got a little experience. I used to do cliff jumping with a couple ex wrestlers as well. What is your highest cliff that you jumped off of?
Take a guess.
I'm gonna I did 80. So above or below 80?
Above.
Nice. Did you get the 3-digit or no?
Yeah. Yeah, it was around 110 feet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tell you, anyone who's done that, you look down there, you literally just gotta just wing it, man, because I thought 80 feet was high. I can imagine adding 20 feet to it.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was.
Where was that at, Mikey?
It was in a private location that I'm not going to say. No, it was in Pennsylvania and PA at a quarry.
Yep.
And I just had I had a crazy experience where, I was going out there, I was jumping, and it was just one thing after another. I was going from, I worked my way up 30 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet, 60 feet, 70 feet. And I was doing probably thousands of jumps. I was just doing that every day, just having crazy fun, just letting go. And I worked my way up to like 110 feet, and I hit the water and I landed perfectly fine. But the kid before me, he was 17 years old. I did a backflip off of it. He did a double backflip off of it, and he landed perfect, and he blew out his knee. So the impact is insane. And I was weight training heavy. I was like, my legs are, pretty built for some heavy duty stuff, but I landed, I was fine. And after that, I was like, I need to get back to wrestling after that.
Next thing you know, you're making a run, you're third in the Big Tens.
Yeah. So that's how it was. I honestly think there was some sort of freedom thing with it.
Yeah.
And I don't take any of it back, even though people will probably listen to this podcast and be like, oh, that's reckless. This is that. And I get it. It's dangerous. It's a little reckless, but there was a point in my life where, I kind of just wanted to live on my terms for a little bit. So I gave myself a couple months to do so.
Nice. Awesome. And then I think you got a movie you're gonna show us, right?
Yeah. I do have a little documentary that I'm going to go ahead and, probably release. I just don't, it's got a little bit of time. I'll give you like a minute or so. My name is Mike Van Brill, a filmmaker and photographer who set out on a journey to immerse his soul in the natural world and escape the constraints of society.
Who am I hitting? I don't know. What are you aiming? Oh, you're aiming for the head?
Yeah. Did I get one of those?
Your shots went, see where on the head to the left?
Yeah.
It all started after qualifying for the D1 national tournament. For the first time in my wrestling career. I was getting ready for an experience that I worked for my whole life. Until the coronavirus swept the nation and canceled the continuation of all sports and put an alarming halt to my wrestling season. 19 years of hard work and chasing a goal of becoming an All-American or national champ was stripped away in a matter of seconds. So I made a life-changing decision. I packed a bag and booked a cross-country flight to Oregon to visit my long-lost cousin. We set to backpack through the depths of Oregon. God, believe, can't hold us down. Yeah, so that's a good little preview.
Nice, good
Nice
stuff.
work, man.
Appreciate it.
Excited for that to come out, man. That's good
Thank
stuff.
you.
Excellent, excellent. So yeah, we'll be checking out that movie. That sounds cool. So I want to talk a little bit about Seagulls. I see you guys are coaching there. How's that going? I'm an OG at Seagulls. I'm in the Vern Zellner days, man. Back old school in the '90s.
That's awesome to know that, man. It's it's hits the home because I started there from when I was real young. So, Seagulls has been kind of my safe haven for wrestling all growing up. But yeah, talk about Seagulls. Really, my brother's running the show over there. He's making sure that all the all the business aspect aside of things, the room, getting everybody in there, and then I'm in there really once twice a week, just giving the guys everything that I got, from technique to mindset to diet, to discipline to really everything that they need to succeed at a young level. It's awesome for these young kids to have access to 3, 4 D1 wrestlers that have done really well. I mean, John's there all the time. I'm in there. Matt Carenti actually joined us there. So there's also another guy, Mike Crowley. There's some others. Trace Kinner, Quinn Kinner's brother. But we got a good thing going on there. We got into a new room in Gloucester, so it's at a really nice place. Got like I think it's like 5 or 6 full mats for these guys to come in and scrap. Some of the young guys, the youth team, we got probably over 30 different wrestlers for those guys to intermix partners and stuff. So I put them, me and my brother, we have gone through the same regiment. So we put them through a nice Donnie Pritzloff warm up where they're just, they're grinding it out. And then, they're almost done the warm up and they're breathing so hard that they're just, it's just about getting them mentally prepared for them to do that maybe before a tournament, before an event, just to make sure that they're training to, blow out their lungs before they go out on the mat. So they're learning a lot of good things. Seagulls has been around for, I mean, John, it's been around for a long time. So we're just looking to carry the tradition.
So going back kind of the wrestling discussions, and we've got Ryder coming up in a big matchup. So obviously I know, John, you got to, obviously there's some I think there's some good matchups on there. The Ryder relationship has been a little bit, I'd say interesting. Obviously you've got the Princeton Rutgers rivalry, which has really grown and really been nice. I think Ryder's always been a very interesting matchup. So Mike, before we go into the kind of the discuss the matchup a little bit, why don't you talk us through your perspective of the Rutgers Ryder matchups? Because I'm going to keep it very conservative, my thoughts of it, but I always saw it as a little bit different from the Princeton rivalry.
Man, I just remember walking in that gym, and there was just, there was a lot of tension already on the fact that, I remember, there was some rivalries. There was some people that left Rutgers and went to Ryder that year. So Ryder's just been a New Jersey type of, it's very competitive. And I remember being at the Ryder, gym. It was just a packed house. You felt the tension and you felt the fans, rooting for, the opposing team. So you definitely feel that. Yeah, it's definitely something hard to explain. I would say that, Ryder and Princeton are relatively equal. It's all about the matchups, depending on who's wrestling. Those are the big things I feel like. But
and I know they like to talk a little bit on social media historically from time to time. Now there's some back and forth there. So did any of that ever bleed onto the mat, or
Yeah, I mean there was some. I mean specifically, I remember JoJo and Pete, and there was some things going on with Rutgers and Ryder, but there was some stuff said on Twitter, and I just remember all of it getting hashed out on the mat. Really, I mean, there's nothing else. There's really no talking once the mat comes, and it's almost like UFC. All these people, it's like for a show. They're all screaming. They're all hating each other, and next thing you know, they just fought a 5 battle war, and they're handshaking at the end. So I would say it's kind of similar in a sense of UFC. Like rivalries are there for a reason. It's a great show. It's great for the fans. It's great for the athletes because, that's what makes wrestling, all the rivalries and the importance of it. So, Yeah.
So, John, we're going to have some good matchups in this year. And I'm hoping Billy's healthy because obviously Janser's been banged up because I'd like to see him get a crack at Laird. That was a matchup I think early in the season we were looking for, but obviously we'll see how Billy's his health is. But obviously you've got Bell Alvarez, that's a good one. Tony White's gonna have a tough matchup I think with Kinner. So John, any matchups that kind of stand out for you that you're interested in for this? Because I think Rutgers takes this. I think we'll get some bonus points from Dean Peterson. I think Sammy Alvarez is going to win his match. He certainly doesn't have an easy go at it. But what are your thoughts?
No, I think it's like you said. I think anytime you got that rivalry matchup, I think it's going to be close. I think Rutgers will win 6 matches. I think Ryder takes 4 matches somewhere along the line. I'm excited to see if Janser takes on Laird. That's going to be a good match. Laird put it on the line this weekend. One of the guys that didn't have to, he put it on the line. He lost to Pence, who beat a lot of top guys. So I think he's going to have something to show. So I think that's going to be a good one. I do think Alvarez Bell is going to be a very tight match. I think that match is going to kind of come down to the last takedown or 1 point match here or there. So I think that's going to be an exciting one. I just think, like Mike said, there's tension there. They want to beat Rutgers, right? They're going to, this is their match. I don't know if you know, Mike, in the 90s, and I'll say it publicly, Rutgers did not field a team like Ryder did in the 90s. I mean, in the 90s, Rutgers isn't there yet as far as a full team. They were good. They were, they had a few years there, 5-6 years where they had a very solid team going against Oklahoma States and everybody else. So I think a lot of people from that era, they want to get Ryder back. I think Rutgers wants to get it back and make sure that they stay on top. So I think it is going to be some competitive matchups there. But the ones you said are the ones I'm very excited for. I do think they missed the boat on the trophy though. They posted the trophy out today. It's a Big Mac rivalry. I think you got to have a hamburger there for the trophy, right? What are they doing? They need to get their marketing department going, right? So we'll see what happens there. So Mike, are you what do you got going on in the last? We'll end it with this. What do you got? What are you looking to see in the last half of the year? What do you got going on?
I'm probably gonna go ahead and try and make it to the Michigan State match. Hang out with you guys at the Miller's tent.
Good. Yeah.
The Miller's Rentals. They got my face on the tent, so I'm gonna have to show up.
There you go.
But yeah, I'm looking for Rutgers to have a great season. I haven't been able to make it out yet. They're wrestling. They got a lot of wrestling to do. So I'm looking to get out to some matches. I can't wait to be at the rack. It's gonna be weird not competing, but I've had a great time at Rutgers. Can't complain about anything, and I can't wait to support them on the other end and watch them do some good stuff. I can't wait till the Big Ten and national tournament. Just being involved in that. There's so much hype and importance to the Big Ten and national tournament that being in it and seeing that hype, there is the regular season, but like Goody says, man, it's time, when Big Tens and Nationals comes around, it's time to show out.
Yeah. So definitely. All right. Thanks a lot, Mikey. Good to have you on, man. I'm excited. January 20th. Get your tickets. Breakdownfromthebarn.com. We'll be in the tent before the match. Let's make it big, guys. Get in there. Get these NIL deals going. Make sure you follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook. We'll get some reels going. I might get some tips from you, Mike. Get some better videography going. We'll get that going, and relentless pursuit, baby.
Thank you, guys.
Pools and Spas by VanBrill is redefining the words full-service pool store. We are one of South Jersey's largest pool stores with a showroom to match. Help yourself, or let us help you get the most enjoyment from your pool. Beautiful in-ground pools, above-ground pools, and spas, too, with an assortment so big you can try before you buy. When you think of water and fun for the whole family, think Pools and Spas by VanBrill in the Timberline Shopping Center, Route 553, Woodbury, Glassboro Road, Sewell.
Congratulations to Kevin Van Brill, 3-time state qualifier. We're back to live wrestling here. Region 8 tournament, championship finals, 140-pound weight class. Number 1 seed John Forster of Buna, senior with a 29-1 record. He's matched up against number 2 seed George Wilson of Paulsboro, a senior with 30 wins and 1 loss.